Everybody, can we please mute? Yes, started. Namaste, everyone, and welcome to this very engaging dialogue with Dr. Sambit Patra on reforms in Modi government 2.0 and achieving Atmanirbhar Bharat. Before we immerse ourselves in this lecture, I would like to acknowledge all the frontline workers who are fighting COVID-19 and request everyone to stay safe and follow the guidelines given by authorities. During the lecture, everyone, please be on mute if you are on WebEx and send your questions in chat or Facebook chat, and we'll see if time permits, we can ask that. Uh, as you all know, we have Dr. Sambit Patra with us, the national spokesperson of the BJP, and the young and dynamic leader we all look towards, who needs no introduction in this current Indian political discourse. We all have seen him in TV debates and enjoy how wittily and easily he decimates the arguments of opposition and very strongly and articulately defends and presents the government view. Dr. Sambit, welcome again, this time virtually, and thanks for your time for discussion with the Australian Indian diaspora. Although 3 years have passed, the memories of your last visit are still afresh amongst all of us, and we still rejoice and are thankful for your visit in 2017. Uh, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Ashwin Joharji from the Central OFBJP team and the coordinator of OFBJP US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. He's also the vice chairman for CEPR India and member of India-Russia Bilateral Council in Niti Aayog. I would like to welcome our national team members Rahulji, Sachinji, Ankurji, Gurudatji, and Keurji, the state chapter leaders and karyakartas, our Parivar leaders, community leaders are also present for the support. Thank you. And the viewers who are watching us on Facebook Live. Now, without taking much of everybody's time, I would like to request Sambit ji to enlighten us with your words.
Thank you, Jay. Namaskar to all of you. Thank you, Ashwin Bhai, for being present over here. Thank you, the diaspora, and thank you, everyone who has connected to listen to this conversation, either through Facebook or through other platforms of social media. I mean, I firmly believe, Jay Bhai, that there would be some samosas today, some virtual samosas, you know. I mean, June
Yeah.
4th, I remember. June 4th, I remember the Indian Prime Minister and the Australian Prime Minister had a beautiful conversation. And the way Mr. Scott Morrison had made some samosas, Indian samosas, it shows as to how you people, this diaspora has fantastically worked towards a great relationship that India shares with Australia. So I would like to begin by congratulating you all because it is your effort, it is the effort of the people, our own brothers and sisters living in Australia, that we have this kind of relationship today. Friends, as you were all mentioning that these are testing times, you were also saying that in 2017 I had come and time flies. How I wish today that time flies again. I mean, generally we want time not to fly. We want time to be static and we want to be ever young. But for the first time, probably in humanity and in mankind's history, we would like time to fly and we would like to say at some point of time, even this shall pass away. This kind of disease, this kind of pandemic, the kind of furor that we are seeing, the kind of depression that has set in across the globe, I firmly believe what is the need of the hour is a great deal of resilience, a great deal of courage, and of course, a great deal of faith and belief. My salutations to all the corona warriors. Probably there might be doctors, nurses, there might be paramedic workers who are watching us today through Facebook and other platforms. I salute to them for the kind of work that they have been doing, saving lives. And well, yes, my friend Sachin is also a doctor. I remember he has been coordinating this. Salute to him. I mean, because of the doctors, in fact, let me also mention, I myself had suffered from corona, so I can tell you, I can vouch for the hard work that these paramedics, doctors, and nurses have been putting in to save us all. Thank you all. The topic, in fact, which has been allotted to me is the second session of Modi government, the 1 year that has passed, the reforms that have been brought. See, in fact, that Modi 2 happened itself is historic. And it happened with the kind of mandate that was again historic. Remember why Modi 1 happened and why Modi 1, that is from 2014 to 2019, was important. Because remember, in the history of Indian polity, we had seen a huge mandate during the time after the unfortunate assassination of Indira Gandhi, our former prime minister. Rajiv Gandhi had come up with 400 plus seats, and it was a huge mandate. But though the assassination was unfortunate, what we had seen after that was a sympathetic voting towards the Congress government. The vote that they received, the mandate that they got, was for the sympathy that the country had for the former prime minister and the unfortunate assassination of hers. What we saw in 2014 was an empathetic voting. People felt that here is a man who empathizes with us. Here is a man who feels for us. Here is a man who would really deliver for us. So it was an aspirational voting. So they voted Mr. Modi with a huge mandate of more than 274 votes and 274 seats. And it was a historic time period of 5 years that we had seen. And thereafter, generally, it is seen in Indian politics that there is some amount of depreciation that sets in, but astonishingly, there was no depreciation. Rather, three, not three seats. It was fantabulous, despite the fact that the whole of opposition had come together to malign the image. And you would remember how best they had tried to malign the image of our beloved Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, bringing in Rafael into this whole scenario. They had to be beaten on their own game on the floor of Supreme Court. Mr. Rahul Gandhi had to apologize. So he had seen all that. So this mandate was historic because people believed that what Modi says, he delivers. The first 5 years was reform, transform, and perform. And let me tell you, this 1 year of Modi too, well, yes, I would talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat also, but let me just pour out my emotions first. This 1 year of Modi 2 is going to be remembered for centuries altogether. And I'll tell you why this is going to be remembered for centuries altogether. Is because of a singular fact that certain decisions which could not be made for centuries were delivered at a stroke of a pen, at a stroke of a time, through a democratic discussion on the floor of a parliament within minutes and within hours. Two of them being abrogation of Article 370, and one, I would say, Jai Sri Ram. It was the construction, the order of the construction of Ram Mandir from the Supreme Court. And let me tell you, today is no ordinary day. Today, while I don't know the time frame of Australia and India, how it varies and all, today in India, it is Shivaratri. It is a Shravan Mahina, the Shravan month, the auspicious month of Shravana, and it is Shivaratri. And the TV is abaj, apart from the Maharashtra politics, the TV is abaj as to when the Prime Minister would be visiting Ayodhya to inaugurate the Silanyas ceremony of construction of a grand Ram temple. And let me tell you, economy, we are doing fantastic. Everything will come and everything will go. Even this time will pass away. But construction of the grand Ram temple at the birthplace of Ram, Ayodhya, is something which would be written by golden letters for all times to come as far as this government is concerned. This is not an ordinary victory. This is a victory that India has achieved. Remember, not a government. India and Indians have achieved, that Sanatana has achieved after a fight, a gruesome fight, and after a very tedious fight of more than 528 years. 528 years. It was fought on the streets, it was fought on the battlefields, it was fought on the British courts, it went through all kinds of scrutinies, it was fought on facts, and let me tell you, it was won on facts. It was won on facts. And well, yes, as far as the role of the central government is concerned, the central government was conducive. It stood, it was the BJP, it was the Anusangik Sangathan of the RSS, which had taken up this fight way back in 1980s, and from the Rath Yatra then, the Ram Rath Yatra then, till today, it had been a relentless fight. And let me tell you, thousands had given up their life for this cause. I remember the Kothari brothers, two brothers, the Kothari brothers. I had been to their house. I had met their sister Poonam Kothari. I had delivered a lecture for the Kothari brothers. These two young boys in 20s, they had given up their life. They became martyrs because they wanted a Bhavya Ram Mandir. They were killed. They were butchered in the streets of Ayodhya just because they wanted a Ram temple. And today, wherever the Kothari brothers would be in heaven, Ram would be blessing them because the fight that they had started culminated judiciously. We would be having a grand Ram temple. This is the decision of the century. Decision of, I would say, of decades, which means a lot to India. A reform which can, I would say, cannot be shied away from is abrogation of Article 370. Friends, astonishingly, I mean, you all must have been observing when discussions were going on in Parliament and when this procedure of abrogating Article 370 was going on. It took just 2 days. Everyone fell flat. There was Mr. Shah, the Home Minister, categorically mentioned that if you have any problem with abrogation of Article 370, I am ready to sit here on the floor of Parliament perpetually, that please come up with 5 points as to why Article 370 should be remaining in the books. Just give me 5 points. And you would be astonished, my friends. Not a single person from the opposition got up to speak about a single point in favor of Article 370. They had not a single justification as to why Article 370 should remain. Article 370 was, in a way, cutting off Jammu and Kashmir from India. I mean, there was an unseen line, a kind of unseen LAC, line of control between India and Kashmir. Since the days that Article 370 had been formed, it was anti-woman, it was anti-scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, it was in fact prejudice towards most of the rights. 106 acts of the Union of India passed by the Parliament of India, the lawmakers of India could not make through to Jammu and Kashmir only because of the fact that we had an Article 370's barrier standing between India and what they called their Jammu and Kashmir. It took only 2 days. 2 days of discussion and debate, and Article 370 was gone. Do you realize one thing out of this? That it could have gone earlier. It could have been abrogated much earlier. But this was not done. Why? Appeasement, appeasement, and appeasement was the only story as to which all the previous governments had been following. I salute the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, and leaving aside the fact that I'm the spokesperson or a worker, an ordinary worker of Bharatiya Janata Party, just as a human being first, because it was anti-woman, it was anti-caste, it was anti-law. I, as a human being, and secondly, I, as an Indian, because Indian Parliament had said that Jammu Kashmir, way back in 1993, is an integral part of India. I salute these two people, Narendra Modi and Amit Shah, the way they abrogated Article 370. You would be astonished, my friends. Way back in 60s, when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was the prime minister, and when he would visit Jammu and Kashmir, and when he would stand to address the crowd at the Lal Chowk in Srinagar, and when people would tell him, and his own people would tell him, this Article 370 is discriminatory. You know what Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru used to say then? You must by now have known as to what he used to say, because we repeated this almost every day in our debates. He used to say that don't worry, ये Article 370 घिसते घिसते घिस जाएगा, घिसते घिसते घिस जाएगा. Gradually, it will be gone. It will be gone. But for all these 70 years, kabhi घिसा nahi, and it took one Modi and a Shah. एक दिन में उन्होंने घिस के उसे खत्म कर दिया. And look at the frustration. Look at the frustration of these people. And you had seen recently the gory pictures as to how a grandfather was killed on the streets of Jammu and Kashmir, and a tiny 3-year-old toddler sitting on the chest of the grandfather, not understanding what to do. That was the fallout, because these frustration that has creeped into Pakistan, the frustration that has creeped into Islamists, the frustration that has creeped into the jihadists is quite visible to us. And that's the reason as to why, I mean, this was a job which should have been achieved a lot earlier, thanks to Modi and Shah and the Bharatiya Janata Party government. And the third big achievement, I would say, one of the achievement of the centuries, would be promulgation of a bill, and now which is an act called as the Citizenship Amendment Act. 3 countries, now countries, in fact, previously part of India, two of them, that is Pakistan and Bangladesh. Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, any Hindu, any Sikh, any Christian, any Parsi, any Buddhist, or any Jain, these 6 categories of people, any one of them facing any atrocities in these areas, of course, they would be granted citizenship in India if you had come to India before the cutoff date of 31st December 2014. If you were in India and if you had sought asylum in India before this cutoff date of 2014, 31st December. Friends, you must have seen that despite the fact that this was part of manifesto of Bharatiya Janata Party, why CAA was important. I mean, most of you know that the first law minister of India, one of the icons of Indian polity, and despite being not of the Congress party, who was inculcated and inducted into the cabinet of Indian cabinet, the first Indian cabinet of Pandit Nehru, Dr. Ambedkar was a Dalit. He was the first Dalit law minister of India. And in fact, similarly, almost a mirror image, the first law minister of Pakistan was also a Dalit, a Hindu Dalit from Bengal, Mr. Mandal. Mr. Mandal. And this man, Mr. Mandal, could not complete his tenure despite being in the first cabinet of Pakistan because he was a Hindu. The kind of atrocities this man had to face was unparalleled. He had to flee from. He was a cabinet minister. He was a law minister, but he had to flee from Pakistan, seek asylum in India, seek refuge in India, and he died in Calcutta. Just imagine, that was the kind of atrocity that people had been facing. There is a professor rather, in Bangladesh, who says that if this is the matter of affair, which if it continues in Bangladesh, then 30 years from today, there would not be a single Hindu left in Bangladesh. You know what's happening with the Sikhs in Pakistan. And so, of course, CAA, Citizenship Amendment Act, was something which we as Indians had promised, we as BJPians had promised to India, and we won. So we, with a stroke of the pen, democratically brought in CAA. Debates and discussions were held. But look and behold, what did you see on the streets? The leftists, the so-called liberals, the Islamists, the jihadists, and the Congress people, they descended on the street to create mayhem, to create riot. They were bloodthirsty. They killed 54 people in Delhi, the capital of India. Shaheen Bagh, quote unquote, Shaheen Bagh became a famous destination, destination of dividing India. Bharat Tere Tukde Honge destination. And thankfully, it was contained. And today, we have a report. The government has a report of these Delhi riots, and I am thankful to the government, particularly the Home Minister and the Home Ministry, Mr. Amit Shah and his ministry, that they are taking stringent action on the culprits who had perpetuated these heinous and gruesome, dastardly riots, I would say. These three, I would say, abrogation of Article 370, construction of Ram Mandir, and CAA, have been three most important decisions in centuries. And remember, I and you would not remain one day. I pray for your good health, though, but this is the fundamental right, the fundamental way the world moves. 100 years from now, we would not be, none of us probably would be here unless some toddler is also participating in this virtual meeting. 100 years from now, most of us would not be there. But remember, 100 years from now, when history books would be written and history books would be studied, these decisions would be part of the history book. And one more important induction into the decision of Mr. Modi's government in this first 1 year was abrogation of triple talaq. Why is this abrogation of triple talaq so important? Why do I need to mention this? Because of a simple reason, that India way back in 1980s had seen something absolutely coward move, a cowardice in political disguise, I would say. Remember Shahbanu's case. Shahbanu's case in 1980s. She was a woman in 70s, a woman who was the wife of a lawyer, a woman who was driven out. She was a mother of grown up children, a woman who was driven out of her home, a woman who needed a paltry sum of some 80 or 90 rupees to sustain herself in those days because she was old. She had no other means to sustain herself. She went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court allowed the alimony that, well, yes, you are entitled to this alimony of 70, 80, 90 rupees, whatever it was. But because of the outcry of the mullahs, because of the outcry of a section which wanted only appeased, to be appeased, appeasement was the cry. Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, the then Prime Minister, fell in for that. And on the floor of Indian Parliament, and I would in fact connect this to, I would in fact, I would almost say that this was akin to Vastraharan of Draupadi. Remember, when the whole Sabha was present, the educated, the Gyani, the Guni, all were sitting. What was happening with Draupadi was something which could never be forgotten. It was written down in history because you cannot belittle a woman when the educated, the Gyanis, the Dhyanis are present. And that is what happened that unfortunate day on the floor of Indian Parliament. A woman, Shahabano, was demoralized, was defeated, while all the Gyanis, the Dhyanis, the elected, the one who had the mandate to give justice to the people of India, saw to it that injustice fell upon a poor, fell upon a woman, fell upon an old Haggard woman, despite the fact that the Supreme Court stood with her just because she was a Muslim, just because the mullahs had to be satisfied. That wrong which the Indian Parliament had committed in 80s was in fact rectified by Mr. Narendra Modi in this second term. The first year of the second term rectified it when triple talaq was not only abrogated, but a strong law was brought in to substitute that anyone who goes in for misogyny, anyone who in fact falls in for this kind of demeaning thing would not be spared. So hats off that something which was adharma, the dharma was brought in, the dharmaraj was brought in. No appeasement, only justice. And as you all know, and BJP stands for justice for all and appeasement for none. These four I see as the pillar on which the first year of Modi government stood. 370, Ram Mandir, CAA, and triple talaq's abrogation, which will go down the history books. Of course, the three C's also, which would be discussed widely. And of course, Corona has found its way already into the history books because I have been asking my parents and they have been asking their grandparents, and most of them have been saying that they have not seen something like this. Well, yes, there have been pandemics before, the Spanish flu, etc. But this kind of pandemic in the modern era is something which we never recall. I mean, I have people who are more aged than me. I can see Ritesh Mehta without hair. I'm fast moving towards the baldness, and something has to be done about my hair also. But there are people who are far more in age and experience than me, and they would vouch that this situation that we are seeing today in the world is unparalleled. And this is when I would say is the testing time of the world. And let me tell you, people say that West is educated. People say that West is glorious. People say West is so careful. I was aghast. With all due respect to everyone who is in West, because of course we should be respecting the West, the East, the North, and the South. It's a global village now. But we have to learn from each other. I was aghast when a couple of days ago I came across a news that somewhere in New Zealand or somewhere, I might be getting the place wrong, but a driver of a tourist bus probably was lynched or killed just because he asked the occupants of the bus to use masks. As simple as that. People don't want to wear masks. And then I read that in US, a man died because he felt that COVID was a hoax. He was a 29-year-old chap and he died because he felt that COVID was a hoax and someone had organized a COVID-19 party. Just imagine a COVID positive person organizing a COVID-19 party, and you have people being invited just to test whether you are man enough or a woman enough to take the challenge. And he passed away. And his last words were, Probably I made a mistake. I don't know how many of you have gone through the article. Please, after this session, Google and see the article. This is a reality that I'm talking about. I mean, such fools, educated people behaving as such fools. Excuse me. And then I saw Boris Johnson. I saw Boris Johnson calling upon people to please wear masks even if you are out in the public. Please wear masks to the shopping malls and shopping centers. And now he is calling it now. With all due respect to Boris Johnson, we are so happy to have him back. I mean, there was a time when the whole world was praying for Boris Johnson. He was in a bad shape, and I could almost see a teary-eyed Boris Johnson when he was giving an interview, and he said that probably the doctors had even drafted a speech as to what would happen if I pass away. And thankfully, thanks to Mahadev, that Boris Johnson is healthy. May he remain healthy for all times to come. May he be healthy and lively for 100 years to come. But just imagine, he had said in initial days that, oh, we do not take it so seriously. World leaders, while there were world leaders who were not taking Corona and its fallout seriously, we had our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, who was serious right from day one. He had, just imagine the population density of India. I had been to Australia. I'd seen how beautiful Australia is. I've seen your population density. I've seen how far separated the houses are. I mean, how well behaved you all are, how things are well managed there. But just imagine India. I mean, the overcrowding, the population density, the situation in India. Had it exploded in India, what would have happened to India? But thankfully, because of the initial care that our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, took, because of the scientific measures that were put into play in the initial days, the lockdowns and the lockdowns that followed thereafter, we have our situation under control. Our mortality rates are quite less. Well, yes, people have suffered from mild COVID. Even I suffered from a mild one, and we all recovered. We have, and COVID had taught us a great deal. We are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. I mean, 70 years, India did not manufacture a single PPE kit, a single PPE kit. And remember, just within months of this COVID, today we are manufacturing almost 4.45, to round it up, almost 5 lakh PPE kit per day. Similarly, India was importing the N95 mask. We did not manufacture N95 mask. More than 10 lakh N95 masks being manufactured in India per day today. We are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Not a single ventilator was manufactured in India, and today we are becoming self-sufficient as far as ventilator manufacturing is concerned. And there we had this chap called Mr. Rahul Gandhi. He understands nothing. And I may appear ridiculous. You may not take me seriously. You may say, look at this mainstream politician called Sambit Patra. He talks rubbish, but I am not talking rubbish. I'm telling you the truth. This man called Rahul Gandhi has not only destroyed Congress, he has tried to destroy the credibility of India to his best. He has tried to destroy the credibility of India to his best, but thankfully, people don't understand. I mean, people don't take this man. I mean, Mr. Rahul Gandhi. I don't even want to talk about him, but he's tried his best. People don't take him seriously anymore. He needs a haircut now, anyways. That's the first thing he does. And he had the audacity of saying that there is a ventilator scam in India. He does not understand how a ventilator functions, that a ventilator needs calibration, that a ventilator functions in a particular manner. And he went ahead to say that while India was becoming Atmanirbhar, while we were manufacturing our own ventilators, homemade, India-made ventilators, he wanted to tarnish the image of India. Mr. Rahul Gandhi, get some oxygen. You really need to go escape to some foreign destination, because you are not able to be yourself in India, because you're not able to do what you do, I believe. And that's the reason as to why you're taking on Indian Atmanirbharta. India is Atmanirbhar and will be more Atmanirbhar in the days to come. So we had PP kits, we had N95, we had our own ventilators, and the best part of it is, during these hours of crisis, hydroxychloroquine, the single drug. Well, it has worked wonders in India, I would tell you. I myself was put on hydroxychloroquine. I have seen as to how it has worked. There has been I mean, I don't know what the WHO has been saying. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, sometimes that no, it is not. I mean, there is no person-to-person transmission of corona. To yes, there is a person-to-person transmission of corona. There has been a whole lot of confusion as far as WHO is concerned. With all due respect to WHO, it means a lot to us. But then, as far as hydroxychloroquine is concerned, despite certain confusion in certain part of the world, remember there was a time when every country needed hydroxychloroquine, and we were the sole country which was providing hydroxychloroquine everywhere. The Brazilian president, God be with him, because he had also tested positive. May he be good very soon. He had almost compared Mr. Modi with Hanuman with the Gandhamardana Parvat, that here is a Prime Minister of India who is supplying hydroxychloroquine to almost every country, to Brazil, to US, to Australia, to Pakistan. Remember, to Pakistan even, we had given hydroxychloroquine. That is the humanity of India. And you would also remember, during the SAARC meeting that Mr. Modi had convened, we had the SAARC countries, and Pakistan had the audacity not to talk about corona, but to talk about Kashmir. They thought that corona also began with K. Haman, corona had a C, Kashmir has a K. So they thought they would talk about K factor. They brought in Kashmir there. But Modi's generous heart, the huge heart of Mr. Modi, he even said that you need hydroxychloroquine. Here is hydroxychloroquine for Pakistan. So our contribution to the world. And yesterday, day before yesterday rather, while Mr. Modi was addressing the United Nations 75th anniversary on collective leadership and multilateralism. Remember, this word multilateralism in the post-COVID-19 is going to be the key word for India, Australia, US, and the whole world for the times to come. It has to be a multilateral and a close-knit world. Modi gave and delivered a strong message that, well, yes. And why was Mr. Modi chosen to give the valedictory message? Because strong leadership is what was required, and we had a strong leadership. At the end, I would say, without taking much time, since we are also discussing about Atmanirbhar Bharat, well, yes, Atmanirbhar Bharat, to be vocal for the local, is something which has happened after a lot many years. It should have happened earlier. It should have happened in years that have gone by. We should have been the hub, and the world should have been picking up from this hub. We have the demographic dividend. We have the young dividend. We have the raw materials. We have the talent. But despite all that, as to why India's Atmanirbharta was put on test for all these years is a question that not so Atmanirbhar Mr. Rahul Gandhi and his party. I'm naming him because Congress is Gandhi family and Gandhi family is Congress. The Congress party should have been addressing. And you had seen the kind of murky deals that the Congress party had with China, the murky deals of the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation receiving money from them, having an MOU, and allowing the trade deficit of India with China rising to 33%, a whooping 33%. So there were murky deals going on. Now we are moving towards Atmanirbharta. A 20 lakh crore package has been announced by the Prime Minister of India, and every strata of the society has been addressed by this package, from the one who are in the lower rung of the pyramid to the ones who are at the topmost, from the MSMEs to the ones who are totally dependent on everyday business. So everyone is affected in a rightful manner by this Atmanirbhar Bharat package, on which Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman had 5 press conferences. Friends, of course, though I'm not a diplomat, I should not be speaking much about China, but no assurance coming from the spokesperson of the National Party, which is in power in the center, while we have a standoff with China, would not complete my speech. Rest assured, while you are away from your country, while your heart stays in India, but you're working elsewhere, you have 2 motherlands, I would say. You have India as well as Australia, because you have contributed towards Australia, and Australia is looking towards you. Let me tell you categorically, far off from your home, be assured, India is in safe hands. India has never been in these safe hands before. It is not an India of 1962. It is an India of 2020. Not an inch of land can be taken by anyone. Not an inch of land has been taken by anyone. Not a single post of India has been occupied by China, as has been assured by the Indian Prime Minister. And remember the difference between border and LAC. Border, well, yes, there has been occupation of land from the border, 43,000 square kilometers, thanks to Chacha Nehru and his miscalculations. But LAC, that is the line of actual control, that has not been transgressed. The Prime Minister has been categorical on that. Have faith in them, and have faith on, when I say have faith on them, have faith on the Indian army, have faith on the Indian fighters. 20 of our martyrs, they have fought in the bravest manner, and you know what they have done to the PLA. You know what they have done to the side that side. Have faith in them, because faith is going to take us through the difficult times of Corona. Faith is going to sail us as to what we are seeing in the standoff. Faith on Indian Army and faith on Indian Prime Minister. And of course, at the end, I would say it would take more than faith to become Atmanirbhar Bharat. We have to sacrifice as well. Those diyas, those Lakshmi Ganesh murtis, those desire to save a penny or two while we shopped in India, that sacrifice has to be made if we really have to be vocal for the local. With this, I would like to end my address to my dearest friends from across various sections of Australia. I really miss you all. You are a beautiful country. You went from a beautiful country. You are in a beautiful country. And believe me or not, India and Australia is in a beautiful relationship. And I would say that if any one of you can meet Scott Morrison, convey our regards, just say Har Har Mahadev and Jai Sri Ram to him. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Sambitji, for that encouraging words. While you said that, these time, we all wish that these time would fly, but last 40 minutes would be an exception, because we all, were so mesmerized and want to listen you forever. However, we do understand, time is not on our side. Quickly, now I would quickly want Ashwinji, can you please say a few words?
Yeah, thank you so much. On behalf of my team in Australia, Sambitji, I would like to thank you so much for taking out time and presenting the truth, presenting what India has achieved, how India is doing multitasking and its leadership is standing for anything and everything, and how India is converting challenges into opportunities. See, during these times, even if any initiative or any call given by Honorable Prime Minister is taken as a revolution by people on the ground, starting from Atmanirbhar Bharat. Yes, now people don't worry about saving penny in buying something which is not made in India. They prefer the products which are made in India. Thank you so much for briefing everything in detail. And yes, here my team asked me to speak 2 or 3 minutes, and I was warning them that you will be losing out 2 or 3 minutes of Samvejji's talk. So it's loss. So thank you so much. And Samvejji, I would like to mention one thing here. The diaspora community, our team, they have worked so hard in last 3 months during these crises, and especially they have been also doing multitasking. So being law-abiding citizen of Australia and emotion-abiding human for India. So they have been multitasking. One of our Karyakarta, I would like to mention it about Guru Duttji. He has very comprehensively presented the data of Government of India, the efforts put during this COVID-19, what all has been done with absolutely crisp knowledge and absolutely comprehensive way, which has been shared by the top officers in India as well. So thank you so much. And we are really proud of you. We have seen that in the beginning of these crises, there were certain information which were converted into misinformation or misinterpreted. whether the information was floating from Government of India or Government of Australia. There were some elements which were trying to create panic, and thanks to few Karyakartas here who were present to clear out the fog and helping the people who came into panic for 3-4 days. We have witnessed Jayaji. Thank you so much. And specifically, Samriji, I was before you joined, I mentioned my team here that how people from all across the world love listening to you. It is not about the way you present the truth. It is not about the way you speaking the truth. It is the way about knowing the truth in the depth and presenting it with a lot of positivity, fearlessly, and remaining with Maryada. So that's the beauty of our Sambit Patra. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jay.
Thank you, Ashwinji. Samji, we'll have very few, questions, quick questions. So we have Subrat Pariji with us. Subrat ji, are you there?
समित भाई नमस्कार
Okay, Subrat.
Namaskar.
मो सुब्रत पाढ़ी आ मु ओरिजिनल ओडिसा रु एबे ऑस्ट्रेलिया रहूची आ समस्त को कन्वीनियंस पर मु एबे इंग्लिश रे कहबी क्वेश्चन टा सो माय क्वेश्चन इज हाउ डिड मोदी गवर्नमेंट हेल्प ओडिसा that is my home state, also your home state, during the recent cyclones like Amphan, Fani and Phylin? And also, what is Modi government's plan to tackle frequent natural calamities like flood, cyclone across eastern India and northeastern states?
So the two things, as far as the cyclone is concerned, well, yes, Subrat, I mean, as far as Orissa is concerned, we have unfortunately seen a slew of these cyclones and natural calamities in the recent times. We had seen Fani, and then we had Amphan also. And of course, though Amphan did not damage much of Orissa, but it had a the damage was more in Bengal, but still Orissa has been hit. As far as what Modi government has done for them, 1,000 crore package was given, as you would remember, to Bengal, and to Orissa, 500 crore package was given. But apart from this package, we have the National Disaster Relief Fund. The National Disaster Relief Fund, which as and when required, whatever the planning of the state government is, we move it accordingly. And remember, during this Amphan cyclone that we had, it was a superimposition on Corona, because Corona was already in progress and we had Amphan. So it was a double, I would say, a double problems of sorts. During those times, providing ration was one of the most important issues. And since I have been in touch with Orissa, the Modi government transferred money to the State Disaster Relief Fund, especially for those who did not have ration cards, so that people could get ration for a period of 3 months initially. And you must have realized that a second announcement was made that now till November, till the end of Chhat Parv, that is to the end of November, for 8 months, people would be getting ration free. I mean, that has a criteria. We have 5 kgs of rice per person and 1 kg of pulse for one family. So this is a big step that we have taken. As far as tackling with national calamities is concerned, we have a disaster management central team which looks into this. If I go into the details of it, I believe I would bore you a lot and it will consume a lot of time. Thank you. बहुत धन्यवाद आपको आप ओडिया रे कहिए.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Samit ji. Now, can we have Ashutosh Agrawal ji from Queensland to ask his question?
नमस्कार संबित जी, मेरा सवाल है इंग्लिश में पूछूंगा. Has COVID stalled the efforts to implement CA and NRC nationally? धन्यवाद.
No, it's a good question. I mean, of course, COVID has stalled is a very strong word, though. But COVID has, of course, brought everything into the rate has been slowed. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there's no question about it, because most of the government, even the parliament, is not functioning. You would know. I mean, the 22nd newly elected members would be taking their oath. The Rajya Sabha members. We'll have the monsoon session, but the parliament had to be signed off sine die, and most of the offices are closed. So yes, I mean, I'm saddened to say that it has come to a halt. But then, well, yes, the dates and all have to be extended so that everything starts functioning. But nothing can be done about it. Life is more important than anything else. If you live, then you become a citizen. If you don't live, how does it matter which citizen you are? No one wants to become the citizen of heaven. They all want to become citizen of India.
Yes. Thank you. Can I quickly ask Vipulji to ask his question from Sydney?
Namaste, Sambitji.
Namaste.
Sambitji, my question is around Atmanirbhar Bharat, and I'll just connect with what you said some time back that what we are seeing now has not happened in centuries, and one of such decision was APMC, where after 700 years, I would say the government has done the right thing by freeing the agricultural market to produce what they
Yes.
want to produce, to sell what they want to sell.
Yes.
700 years back, this was changed because every Islamic invader wanted to capture India's revenue system, which was largely based on agricultural
Very true.
products. But for this thing to succeed, we need to connect and make our domestic market strong. India is not just New Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Chennai. Bulk of our population lives in villages. Unless we connect those areas with the real demand and create a supply chain, Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is all about increasing the GDP and controlling the fiscal deficit, will not go through. How is the government doing that? And where is the administrative astuteness to create that wave, that positive wave that India is on the right path?
So it's a very right question and very scientifically asked. I would not go into the nitty-gritty and the details of it, the ENAM and all that. What the government is doing is, and what needs to be done for the supply chain is, I believe, very simple: infrastructure, infrastructure, and infrastructure. You need to have cold storages. You need to have good transport means. You need to have good roads. Alone then, perishables can be brought to the markets. Alone then, you can have a free market system. Infrastructure has to be built, and nothing comes. I would say nothing comes just in a few days. The whole system, though I should not be saying it, I mean, the government at the top has changed, but this time it has to be a top-down approach. A bottoms-up approach is quite difficult. It has to be a tops-down approach. Na khaunga, na khane dunga at the top, discipline at the top, ministers working at the top, and then gradually trickles down to the district collectors level. We have those 113 aspirational districts which really need, because see, all these marketing supply chains, especially for the poor in the aspirational districts, is something which is extremely important. And what do these aspirational districts need? They don't even have proper roads, they don't have cold storages, they don't have connectivity, they have middlemen. So we have to remove the middlemen, we have to have connectivity, we have to have cold storages. It will take some time. I would say not just some time, a lot of time, and we have to have patience, because it has taken a lot of time to dismantle the system. It will take a lot of time to, in fact, bring up the system. एक छोटी सी दिवाली के कार्यक्रम में भी हम अपने घर को रंगाई पुताई करने में 1 हफ्ता तो लग ही जाता है. सारा सामान बाहर निकालते हो, नया सामान लाते हो, रंगाई पुताई करते हो, उसे ठीक करते हो. So if we want to have Diwali in India in a real sense, economically, and APMC you were talking about, so ये पुराना सामान निकालना पड़ेगा. बहुत पुराना सामान पड़ा हुआ है यहाँ वहाँ, जो सब बहुत गड़बड़ कर रहे हैं, और फिर नए सामान लाके रंगाई पुताई करनी पड़ेगी. चल रही है, चल रही है.
Amitji, privatization and private participation, how is that going through? Without that, success will not come.
You are right. You are right. And recently, you must have seen as to how there was a controversy brewing up in India. In fact, rather, it is brewing up in India about the railways privatization you were talking about. There was a PPP model that has been brought up. 53 trains would be started in certain routes, 90 routes. There's a huge amount of hue and cry. It is not privatization. 95% of railways would be with Indian Railways. Only 5% we wanted to have the partnership of the private players, because that would add a lot to the value of Indian Railways. And you know as to what is the operational cost that the Indian Railways has been facing. It has been said, I mean, remember Mr. Trivedi, who was the railway minister? He was the last railway minister who tried to, in fact, increase the cost of a ticket fare of the Indian Railways, and he had to the other day bow out. The next day he had to bow out. He had to resign because he was from Trinamool Congress, and people felt in the government that, well, this is anti-people move, so there's no other way out. And what Mr. Trivedi had to say, the railway is dying. We have to have money to save railway. No one wants. We all want to be populist. If we really privatize things gradually, slowly, bring in a world view into it, world-class experience into it, that's what is required. But then, there are a whole lot of gangs sitting over here opposing everything. That's why I say the system needs to, there are bureaucrats, there are people everywhere. Things have to change. Things will change gradually. We are doing that. Railway is a bright example as to what we are doing. Air India is another one. We're seeing it. We're doing it.
Thank you, Sambit ji. I think in interest of time, although there are too many questions, we'll have to limit it this time. And next time we will invite Sambit ji here, and we can have as many questions as you want.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
finally,
so much, Jayji.
yes, we'll just have Rahul ji giving the vote of thanks. But before I hand over to him, I'll thank Dr. Sachin Dahiya helping us coordinating, this wonderful program and lecture with you. So Rahul ji, to you now. Rahul ji? Rahul ji, you're on mute, I think.
Rahulji, unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yep, it's done now. Sorry. My apologies, Sambit ji. बहुत धन्यवाद आपका. I still remember the warmth and love you had showered to all the Australians when you in your last visit. And right appropriately, you started with samosas. Actually, the Australian Prime Minister made the term scomosas because his name is Scott Morrison. Scomosas. So I think it will still be very much etched in your memory that we had an opportunity to have a chat with him when you were here, and that time he was the treasurer, and he still remembers that. So look, it's really great to understand.
I'll just mention one thing, which is very extremely important here. I remember I was with Scott Morrison, and he told that he has a worldview about India, and I told, oh well, that's really great. And then he pulled out a book. He said, "This book has taught me what India is," and the book was written with Ram Go, Ram Gua. I told, my God, you are not having a good view of it. You are not having a good view of India. Change the book. He told, oh, well, is it? Is it? I never forget that.
Yes, it was a great joke up there because I asked him to toss it into the bin, and the same joke up there. So look, it's really great. The last 1 year has actually shown to the entire world, especially the Indian public, because they always thought that BJP had these slogans about Ram Mandir, about this. These are just vote capturing things to consolidate Hindu vote, and they will never do anything about it because if they do anything about it, they will not have any other issue to fight elections on. So I think that myth has been busted, and now people have now come to realize that in India also the progression can be made. The nationalist government of BJP is doing the right thing on every single count, whether it is making sure that the country is liberalizing in terms of its economic policy, whether they are taking care of the borders, or whether they are making India much more self-reliant by having more and more investment coming to India. Not only that, but also taking India to a stage where the entire world, United States, Japan, Australia, they're all getting together to make sure that not just the India, but the entire Pacific area is safe from the aggressions of people, those who are different designs to basically rule the world. So look, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. I think the entire team in Australia with over BJP and Ashwinji and Nihalji, who's our mentor, he's still up here, I hope. Nihalji.
Namaste to Nihalji. I had been to his place. Namaste to Nihalji. He's our senior.
Yeah.
Super senior.
Yeah. So look, it's really great to have you up here. Thank you very much. You have answered the questions to with the same fervor with which you speak. Your smile and your charisma remains intact. We can only pray from Australia that God, that Lord Shiva basically keeps on bestowing his blessings to you and Modi ji and the entire BJP team, who is doing so well to maintain that India remains at the forefront of our minds, and not only our minds, but also at the world stage also. So we can only send all our wishes, best wishes, good luck to you, and dhanyavad. Thank you for coming on this Sunday morning. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you so much.